Hey, what's up, guys? I'm TJ. I'm a NASM certified personal trainer, and today I want to talk about 3 different ways you can diet. Now, the first way you can diet is what we call intuitive eating, and this is a little bit more complex than just like normal, just like eating normally without having to think about it. It's a little more intentional. So you kind of only want to try and eat when you're hungry. Focus on slower eating, so eating your meals over a longer period of time, rather than just trying to, like what I sometimes do or like to do, especially if it's really good food. I just eat it all as fast as I physically can. By eating slower, you're more likely to eat less, more likely to feel when you're fuller sooner, and you're less likely to overeat that way. And then the main thing, the real good way you're going to track like how much you're eating is track how satiated you feel on a scale from 1 to 10. 1 being like you're almost starving to death, with 10 being you're so full you might throw up. And generally you want to stay in like about the 7 to 8ish range, with 7 being pretty full, pretty nice without being like too nauseous. 8 might be like you're almost lethargic to feeling like kind of like maybe a little bit food coma-y, with 9 being a definite like you're lethargic, you're not going to move. It's like you've ate a lot of food. So the 7 to 8 range is almost where you want to be. Just try more on the 7 size, like 7.5 maybe. Technically a little bit better. One good thing about this is that it's very low barrier to entry. So if you want to start doing it, you don't need to buy a scale. You don't need any fancy apps. You just need to just start kind of applying the idea of like focus on eating a little bit slower and try and track how satiated you feel throughout the day to try and gauge how much you should be eating. So it makes it pretty easy to do. And for most people, this can work to where they're not eating too many calories. They're also eating enough calories. So it's like much easier for your average person to do than you might think, especially if they put a little more intentional thought into it than they might have previously had to do. Some of the cons make it a little more difficult. You can overeat, so it's very still possible that you're just like not good at tracking like how satiated you feel. That's like it's a skill you need to develop, something you need to build up over time. It's not going to be something you can just do day one and be perfect. Maybe it takes you a little bit to figure out like how full am I really, and maybe also another possibility is that you're eating foods that are maybe higher in calorie but low in satiation. So while you're maybe tracking your satiation perfectly, you're just eating a lot of food that are already like really high in calories. So it might be a little bit difficult for you to still try and get the calorie intake you need. Another thing, this could lack some nutritional components. So maybe you're not getting enough of your macros, not getting your micros, because all you're really tracking is how much satiation you get, rather than maybe trying to be a little more careful, a little more nitpicky with like the foods you kind of eat, is because you're not tracking the food, you're not tracking what you're eating, not making sure you're eating certain foods. You're just trying to track how much food you're getting a day and how you feel while you're eating that food. And then, like I said before, it could take some practice to understand what satiation means exactly. So maybe you're getting a really good hang of it early on and you're able to do it just fine, no problems. Or maybe you're doing it for a couple weeks, a month, and you're not losing weight, you're not able to hit the goals you want, and it's just getting really hard for you to understand like how satiated you feel, because sometimes you'll finish eating and you'll be like, okay, I think I'm about a 7. Then maybe like a minute or two will pass by, and then you really feel the effects of like, oh, now I'm actually like an 8 or 9, and you actually overate. Or maybe you think you're at a 7, but then you realize after like maybe 30 minutes to an hour, you're hungry again because you actually were probably closer to a 5 or a 6. That's probably the main pitfalls, is just trying to figure out what satiation means to you, and then trying to figure out if you're already eating maybe high calorie, low satiation foods. Then probably the one you hear the most often is counting calories. Main thing you do is count the calories you eat by weighing your food, reading package labels, and you want to aim for, if you're trying to lose weight, I would normally like to recommend like a 100 calorie deficit from your normal baseline. So if you know you eat 2,500 calories a day and you're maintaining your weight just fine, maybe try to drop it down to 2,400 calories a day. And that would be, over a long period of time, would be one way you could start losing weight. Then obviously for the opposite, you can add 100 calories to your baseline to gain weight if you're looking to gain weight, gain muscle. So in the pros, it's pretty accurate. Like you could pretty accurately figure out like where the problems are, or like how many calories you're getting a day if you're able to just like track it properly. You're able to like add it all up, keep track of it. It's pretty accurate. It's very hard to like be like, I'm not sure why I'm not gaining or losing weight if you're counting calories and if you're doing it well. It also doesn't require any nutritional background, so you don't really need to like have any knowledge of like how much protein or carbs or fat should I get. It's really just like, okay, I just need to like aim for this number, maybe a little less, and then just going from there. And a lot of apps, there's like so many apps that are marketed to help you count calories. The one I used a lot is MyFitnessPal. That one's really good. Is you're able to like not only count your calories and track your calories, but it will automatically track your macros if you're looking to do that, which we'll talk about soon. But it will also let you search up stuff that you don't know or scan your food label that you have. So if you eat like a package of, I don't know, like a bag of like Lay's chips, you just like instead of like putting in the calories manually, you could just like take out your camera on the app and it'll just scan the bag or the barcode label and it'll just automatically put it in. Or there's also a feature where you can search. So if you like have something from, I don't say the same bag of Lay's chips, you can just look up Lay's chips and then a few things might show up, like maybe different size bags, like the family size bag, like the medium bag, and then like the small like one like meal kind of bag. And you can just kind of like pick the one you ate. Hopefully it's the small personal size bag and not the whole family bag in one sitting. And then you can just put it in and it'll do the rest for you. It's very good. That's probably the best one. It also has like stuff so if you have chicken and you weigh just like however much chicken, you can put in how many grams of chicken after you weighed it. So it'd be like, okay, you go into the app, find chicken, just put in like, okay, and then put in like, okay, maybe it's like 100 grams of chicken. Yeah, 100 grams. You'll just put 100 grams and it'll do the rest for you. So you don't have to even look up how many calories in 100 grams of chicken. MyFitnessPal will just be like, okay, got it, and put it in, all done. Pretty easy. Cons, it can be easy to miscount sometimes, especially if you're not meticulously keeping track of like everything you put into a dish, or if it's a dish that you didn't prepare yourself. A lot of this can be really thrown up to a lot of oils and butter most of the time, because a lot of people, they'll make, I don't know, like pasta, they put in like some oil, or they make a salad dressing, a lot of oils and fats in that, or they'll have toast and they'll just like spread a little, they think it's a little bit of butter, but like maybe that little bit of butter is more than you think, and those calories that you like don't track or track inaccurately can lead to like very big miscalculations. If you're not being super meticulous sometimes, or you're not making sure you know exactly how much is going into each thing you eat, or you're not using the right labels, not putting in the right numbers, it can be very easy to like lose track of how many calories you're actually eating a day and eating way more or even way less than what you actually should be eating. And like I said before, you might count certain foods like the oil, like the butter, where it's like you just kind of like maybe even just go from the bottle and you just like be like, okay, I'll put a couple things of olive oil, and how much olive oil is it? I don't know. You didn't weigh it. You didn't put it in a tablespoon. You didn't weigh it as a teaspoon. So it can kind of become a little bit ambiguous, and those calories may be throwing you off, where you're like, okay, I'm on a deficit. I should be losing like this much weight like per week, per month, and then it's not happening and you don't know why. It's maybe because you're not counting the oils, the butters, or you're just like missing a few things, or you're not counting a few things that you just missed. The hardest part is when you're eating out. That's when it can be the hardest part, because it's like, it's the weekend, it's Friday night, you're going out, you're spending time with friends, family, doing whatever, and you want to eat out because, that's normal. You shouldn't be forced to stay inside and just eat at your home with meals only you make every day, because it's fun. That's not sustainable. It's not something you can keep up for the rest of your life. You should be able to eat out, and counting calories while you're eating out can be difficult because not every restaurant will have the calories listed underneath. Trying to figure this out on the fly can be difficult, and the main solution to this is trying to find places that do have calories on their menu. Or MyFitnessPal also, if you go like look up any at least chain restaurant, like if you go I know McDonald's, if you go to McDonald's and be like, I had 10 pieces of nuggets, it'll know how many calories are in 10 pieces of nuggets because McDonald's has that public and they have it there. And it might be like this for if you go to, I don't know, like a Chili's or a Fridays or any other chain restaurant you can think of, they'll probably have it. More local restaurants, it's very unlikely MyFitnessPal will have it, but if they do have it on their menu, then you can always use that. And I'd recommend trying to go to restaurants that have their menu with calories on them. And last one, counting macros is probably the most meticulous of them all. And the main way this one works is pretty simple. It's basically just like an enhanced version of calorie counting, where you're not only counting calories, you're counting your carbs, proteins, and fats. And it can be seen as basically an extension of calorie counting. Then one nice thing about this is you can get very precise about what you're taking, and you have a lot more control, and you can adjust it based on your needs. So if you're like more into doing a lot of running, you're like doing 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, Ironmans, if you're crazy, like all that stuff, triathlons, all of it. You might need to have a little bit more of a higher carb intake than a protein and fat intake, because you're burning so much energy, and all that cardio exercise you're doing is going to be needing carbs. So maybe you will focus more on getting high carbs, a lot of carbs, very little protein and fat. Or maybe you're someone like a bodybuilder, you're looking to build more muscle, that's more protein, maybe a little less carbs, and like maybe about equalish fat. And it's really a big emphasis on that protein and upping that protein and keeping track of that. Same thing with like if you're trying to be a power lifter, anything in that kind of realm. And the main thing that makes this difficult is that it's a lot more meticulous. It's like much more difficult. It requires a lot more manual input, a lot more, how would you say, a lot more rigorous kind of like analyzing of all the foods you eat. So you need to now before, when it's counting calories as intuitive eating, you're just trying to eat. With intuitive eating, you're just kind of eating to see how you feel satiated. With counting calories, you're being a little more meticulous and trying to be like, okay, can eat whatever, but I just need to make sure I'm not going over this number, or I make sure I'm meeting this number. As long as you're not going too far over that or too far under it, you're pretty good. With this, not only do you need to get to the calorie count, you also need to make sure the calories are the right amount of carbs, protein, and fats. And doing that for someone who's maybe new to dieting can be very difficult, can be very overwhelming to start with. So you might want to just start with doing maybe counting calories or maybe just intuitive eating, and then build your way up to counting macros if you're looking to have the most intense, the most control of your diet you can. Or maybe not the most control, but you're getting very high up on your control. And then obviously it requires a lot of discipline and focus, because not only does it make this making eating out even harder, it can make it almost impossible. Because if you're not going to a place that because it might not even be able to go to places that don't keep track of their macros as well. So, or if you can't like guesstimate or weigh it or figure it out or kind of have like a general gist of the macros of the place you go to, it can kind of like almost cut out eating out entirely, or you just save it for one special day of the week where maybe you could be a little bit lax with your macros, or maybe you don't hit like your carb or your protein or your fats perfectly, and maybe you get a little bit too much carbs that you should, or maybe a little too many fats, maybe a little bit low on proteins one day. And it's like, that's fine doing it one day of the week where it's a little bit off. But if you're really going for optimal gains, optimal performance in whatever it is you're doing, this could be the way. And it also could mean you have to stop eating out. But that's just kind of some sacrifices people have to make in order to be the best, or even to make drastic improvements in your life. And yeah, that's kind of all I got for today. See you in the next one.